So now we're going to practice with character arrays, also known as C strings. They're an early prototype of strings in C++. So let's create an array of characters. I'm going to create a constant, which I'm going to call max. I'm going to set it to 80 for 80 characters in size. And then I'm going to create a char array. I'll call it str. And inside of here, we will put our constant max. So we are creating a character array that is 80 characters in long. And then I'm going to ask the user to enter a string. I will read that in and put it in our character array. And then we're just going to mirror out what the user keyed in. So if I run it, I expect it to ask me for a string. And if I key something in, it's going to mirror that back to me. But what happens if I key in something like this is a string? Do you remember what it's going to mirror back to me, or what I just captured? This, the word this. I captured the first character in that string because if you remember, CN only reads in a single character. Excuse me. So we're going to say CN reads a single word, just a single word. So if I want more than a word, I'm going to have to do something else. So since the potential exists that they keyed in more than one single word, what we're going to do is we're going to ignore everything else that's in the input stream. So how about up to 2,000 characters? You could put 10,000, and this is when we could do the max limit, or until it finds the new line char. So we're just kind of ignore everything in there just in case they keyed in more than one word. And then we're going to ask them for another string. Let's see if we can have them do it again. This time I'm going to say no more than 80 characters, because if you remember, my character array is only 80 characters long. And this time when we CN, I'm actually going to set the width of max. So I'm only going to read in 80 characters because that is the maximum size of my character array. And then we'll put it into string, and then we'll see out. So let's see if this makes any difference. Now the set width, does anybody know why my set width is not happy? If you said that we have to pound include IO manip or manipulation, then you are absolutely right. Set width is in IO manipulation. All right, so let's run it. So here is my first read. Now the first read is only going to capture the first word. I need to force a new line. And then it says that we need some characters. All right, how do I get 80 or more characters in there? That's probably not 80 characters yet. So this is the way that I can set the maximum number of characters that I want to read in if I'm going to put them into a character array. So I came back on line 20 and I forced a couple of new line characters just to kind of separate everything that we were doing. It sounds like we might be in for another doggy playtime today because I can hear them in the background winding up to a full-on play date. So we already discussed the fact that CN reads in a single word. But what if I want to read in more than a single word? Do you remember how to do that? So what I'm going to do is we are going to ignore again, because it's possible that they keyed in other things. We could put a very large number in here. The second parameter is going to be, so it will ignore up to 10,000 characters, or until it comes along with a new line character. So either one of these is going to clear out the read from line 24, which might have more than 80 characters in it. Possible they're copying and pasting and things. And now what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to read in another. So I'll say enter I'll call this one a third string. And this time, instead of using just cn, we're going to use cn.get. And cn.get is a function that's available to C strings. So it requires two parameters. The first one is the variable that you want to put it in, and the second one is the number of characters that you want to read. So we have this handy constant available, so this one is going to read in up to 80 characters long, and then we'll see out and then I will put a couple of new lines after that. Looks like that needs to be a semicolon and not a full colon, and then we'll run it. All right, so once I put the semicolon at the end of line 31, then this is going to be my first read. This is going to be my second read, which was not more than 80 characters, and then this is my third read. So this is the third string, or the third read, and it's going to mirror that back to me. Looks like I also need to force a new line after that last print statement. So we can put a couple of end lines here, or we could force a new line as we did on line 31 with a couple of escape sequences. All right, so we are reading characters or reading strings into what is a character array or a C string. All right, so if you remember, we can do an implicit initialization instead of explicitly telling it, as we did on line 16, the number of values in the character array. We can actually do an implicit initialization, which is what I'm doing on line 36. So I'm going to create another string. I'll call it string 1. This one, I'm not going to explicitly tell it how many characters there are, but what I am going to do is a series of comma-separated values. And so let's come in here. We'll make this C, and then we'll put an H in here, E, and they are single quotes, not double quotes. And Visual Studio is trying to help me. Comma-separated list. And because it is a C string or a character arrays always end in the null terminator. So the null terminator is a 0. That will be the end of my character array or my C string with my implicit declaration. So we have to hard code the null terminator. C strings always end in a null terminator. And then let's just output the string 1 and see what we get in it. All right, so gives me cheers. That's what I was expecting. It looks like a string when it's actually a character array. So we're going to try to access elements of a character array. And we're going to do that with with the brace operators. So I'll say on the brace access so that you can see that. And then let's just pick one of the elements. So we'll do string 1 with the bracket elements. And how about if we just access element number 2? So what would I expect if I am accessing element number 2 out of this string right here? What would you expect it to print? And when I run the program, it is giving me the letter E. And if you can explain why it's giving me the letter E, that's because it is character arrays or C strings are 0 based, just like the rest of the arrays. And so the letter C is index 0, the letter H is index 1, and then that first D is going to be index 2, which is the one that we asked for. So we're also going to find out, unfortunately, that this has no bounds checking. No bounds checking. And I can tell that. Let's see what happens if I come back in here, and I'm pretty sure cheers would appear to have 7 characters in it. So what if I said 20? I want to access element 20 in that cheers C string or cheers character array. What would you expect it to do? All right, on my platform, this is what it's giving me. It's giving me this character here, a very strange looking character. So let's see if we can put this in a try catch to make any kind of a difference. So I'm going to change that back to element 2. We're going to try a try catch. We're going to see if we can catch. Oh, we got to get the opening and closing curly brace of my catch. There it is. And we're going to tab that catch over there. Very good. So what we're going to try now, I'm just going to grab that statement because I'm going to put it in a try catch. And the way a try catch works is if an exception is thrown, then my catch statement could catch it. And so let's see if we can catch an exception. Now this is just going to be a generic exception, and then what I'm going to see out is there was some kind of an error, and then I would also like to know what the error was. So I'm going to say error.what to see if it will give me whatever the error was, and then we're going to run it again. So I'm going to update the index on the string inside of my try. And this time when I run it, let's see if it will actually do out of bounds checking. If it would, I expect it to throw an exception. And we would catch the exception. But if you can see, it did not throw an exception. Therefore, we didn't catch an exception because the brace operator has no bounds checking, which means that I would personally have to do that bounds checking myself by saying if the value that they're trying to access is greater than the length of or the number of characters in my array, then don't allow them to access that. All right, so the play is starting in earnest. My apologies if you heard the barking in the background. So how can I actually tell how many elements are in there? If I'm going to have to say, give me a number, which element do you want to access? Wait a minute. There's not that many elements in that character array. I should probably know how many elements are in there, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to see out, let's see if we can say elements in string. We should only have 2 strings, string and string 1. And then we are going to use str string length. And then inside of these parentheses, I'm going to put the name of the string, and then we'll force an end line. And then for the sake of time, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it again. And then I'm going to say elements in string 1. And then I will change this to string 1. Let's see if we can find out how many elements are in the string and how many elements are in string 1. Now string 1 has cheers, so we would expect 6. And then it looks like string is what we are keying in. So let's try it. So this is where I'm going to key in string. This is also string, and I'm pretty sure this is also string. This is string 0. I guess we'd call it string 0. And then if you'll notice, it said that there are 16 characters in string 0, and there are 6. So that is cheers, 2, 4, 6. I'm going to have to go back. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. All right, so I have 16 characters in string 0. And then we have the 6 characters in string 6. But what if I want to know the size of the C string, which is entirely different from the number of elements? So this time I'm going to key out the size of str. And I'm going to use the function called size of, and what's going to go inside of here is str, and then we'll force an inline, and then I will copy this one, and we'll try it for string 1. We'll see if there is a difference between the number of elements in a string, in a character array, and the actual size of the character array. So I'm going to use the same string we had before. This is a string. I expected there to be 16 this time and 6 in cheers. Now there are 7 in cheers and there are 80 in my very first string. Do you know why there's 80 in the first one and there are 7 in the second one when it says there's only 6 characters in there? If you said it's because this null character counts in the size of, then you were absolutely right. And if you said when we created string, we set it to be a size of 80, that's why the size of that one is 80, because that is the maximum number of characters that we can put in there. All right, so we might want to stop this video before the dogs start to go hog wild. Next time we're going to be talking about character arrays versus regular strings.